سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is Muhammad Saeed with Sheikh Nuruddin with the Quranic Reflections program. And last week we were talking about some aspects of marriage. And inshallah, with this week we're talking about unfortunately some, the less happier prospect of divorce, which inevitably happens. It's unfortunately an aspect of life that we have to accept, and Islam has makes provisions for this.
Yes.
So, Sheikh, what as an introduction to the topic, what does in general terms, what does the Deen say about in terms of Quran and Sunnah about the matter of divorce?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Rabbi yassir wa'in wa barik ya kareem wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay. First we'll start with the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This hadith is in Hakim, the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim, who considered it a Sahih hadith, and Imam Dhahabi concurred with him, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Ma ahallallahu shay'an abghada ilayhim min at-talaq," which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made a thing halal or permitted which is more disliked to him or more hated to him than divorce. Okay, so based on this hadith and verses of Quran that we'll come to later on inshallah, and other evidences besides, it's quite clear that in Islam divorce is permitted, yes, as opposed to some other religions or cultures where divorce was not even an option. It is permitted, but it should obviously be the exception and not the rule. And this doesn't mean that Muslims should not see a marriage as a contract for life, as a relationship that should last a lifetime. No, that is how we view marriage. Marriage should last a lifetime. It is seen as a contract or a relationship that continues throughout one's life, and even we have hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that takes it beyond this life. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about how a couple will be together not only in this life but in the afterlife also. So Islam gives great importance to marriage, and teaches that it should be for life. Marriage should be for life, but it also recognizes, as you mentioned in the introduction, makes provision for the fact that sometimes people, they just cannot live together and they cannot continue this relationship, so it permits divorce. Now, as for if we look in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, the Sahaba around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from what I know, divorce was incredibly rare. But it did occur from time to time, and it occurred sometimes with prominent Sahaba. And it may be the one incident which is mentioned in Quran, mentioned in Hadith also, is the incident of Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, divorcing his wife, which is detailed out in the seerah literature, in the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how the Sayyidina Zayd was not getting on with his wife, Sayyidah Zainab bint Jahsh radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Now, they weren't getting on, but what happened, he kept coming to the Prophet ﷺ, kept approaching the Prophet ﷺ, speaking about the difficulties, and the Prophet ﷺ's advice was constantly, consistently, continuously go back and try again, try harder, try to make it work, try to make it work. This was the continuous advice of the Prophet ﷺ until Sayyidina Zayd ibn Haritha, eventually he found that there's just no way it's going to work. He divorced his wife. But first of all, we should recognize who Zayd ibn Haritha is. Zayd ibn Haritha, for much of his adult life, he was known as Zayd ibn Muhammad. For those who are familiar with the seerah, this is a person that the Prophet ﷺ adopted. He used to be a slave. The Prophet ﷺ took ownership of him, freed him, and not only did he free him, although he was a slave prior to that, the Prophet ﷺ adopted him as a son. And he continued to be known as Zayd ibn Muhammad until the Quran prohibited naming adopted sons after one's own surname or family name. At that point, he reverted back to his old surname or family name, which is Zayd ibn Haritha. His father is Haritha. Now, so the point is, this person, he was raised by the Prophet ﷺ. He was roughly 15 years old. Not raised from a child, but his, still formative years were with the Prophet ﷺ. He's considered to be an incredibly pious Sahabi, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and somebody very close to the Prophet ﷺ. And as a general rule, somebody who is close to the Prophet ﷺ means that this person is a pious person. And we don't get closeness to prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except through piety. And how do we draw close to Allah? Is through piety. And the messengers of Allah, alayhi wassalam, they love what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and they hate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates. They bring close to them what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bring close to him, and they make distance from them what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would cast away from him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fact that somebody is close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a strong indication with regards to their piety. So this is a very, very pious Sahabi, very close to the Prophet ﷺ, raised by the Prophet ﷺ, still in his formative years, and yet he ended up divorcing. So the point here is that some people feel that a truly pious man would never divorce, or a truly pious woman would never divorce. This is not the case. See, one other example to mention, we have Zubayr ibn Awwam. This is the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. He was married to Asma bint Abi Bakr. So Asma is the daughter of Abu Bakr. Again, two incredibly pious people. Sorry, I forgot to mention Sayyidah Zainab, who was married to Zayd ibn Haritha, also an incredibly pious person. She later on became the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, and she radiyallahu ta'ala anha was praised by the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And as we know, the wives of the Prophet are with the Prophet ﷺ in the Akhirah. To achieve something like this, there has to be great goodness and piety in such an individual. So they were two incredibly pious people, as were the ones I mentioned just now. Who were they? Zubayr ibn Awwam and Asma bint Abi Bakr. Okay, Sayyidah Asma is the daughter of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and a very incredibly pious person, as is Zubayr ibn Awwam radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And regarding Zubayr ibn Awwam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said something regarding him that, to the best of my knowledge, I've never found in any hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said regarding anybody else. The Prophet ﷺ said, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ حَوَارِي وَحَوَارِيَّ Zubayr ibn Awwam radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa Zubayr, or kama qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which means every prophet has a disciple, and my disciple is Zubayr ibn Awwam. And this, as far as I know, this is particular to Sayyidina Zubayr. Is very close to the Prophet ﷺ. Again, somebody became Muslim very early on and went through all kinds of hardships for the sake of his faith. A really devout believer. Despite that fact, he ended up divorcing his wife. Okay, so yes, we, to take a holistic view on divorce, what would we say? That it should be avoided. It should be the exception, not the rule. It shouldn't be the case that, every Muslim relationship ends up in a divorce. It should be a rare exception rather than the rule. But we should not pass judgment on people who do end up in divorce and say, oh, there must be something wrong with these people's character, or religiously must be something wrong with them because they ended up in divorce. Absolutely not. You know, if we will make such a judgment, we would inevitably making such a judgment on Zainab bint Jahsh radiyallahu ta'ala. So, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, the wives of the prophets are the mothers of the believers. Nobody would make such a judgment regarding our mother, Sayyidah Zainab bint Jahsh. Nobody should ever dare make such a judgment regarding Zayd ibn Haritha, or Sayyidina Zubayr ibn Awam, and Asma bint Abi Bakr, and others besides. So the point is, yes, it should be the exception, not the rule, but it's permitted when there's a real need, and if it happens, the people involved, the people outside looking in, shouldn't cast judgment on them, and the people involved, yes, should reflect upon, you know, what went wrong and, you know, their faults or what have you, but shouldn't deem this a barrier now between them and their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very important. You shouldn't think that, well, I'm just a bad person and, you know, I've done something so grave or what have you that I can never be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Absolutely not. And it's done, move on, inshallah, try to move on in the right direction.
Yeah, I think a notable thing you said there is that what happens in nowadays and is that there is a lot of not a lot, a stigma attached to those people or those individuals who have been through divorce, and that's unfortunate. What you're saying is that that's not permitted to have cast any dispersions on anybody who's been through or who has been divorced by virtue of the fact that many pious companions and people of the Prophet, peace be upon him's time, went through that.
Absolutely, and I think one of the greatest proofs for this is as the Prophet ﷺ was commanded in the Quran to marry Sayyidah Zainab bint Jahsh after her divorce.
Right.
And had there been any shortcoming, any fault or any blame in divorce, why would Allah command, subhanahu wa ta'ala command the most noble person, the Prophet ﷺ, to marry this blessed woman? You see, so absolutely, that's false to do so.
Another common theme that pops up when the issue of divorce comes up is whether it's said in jest or whether in anger. Could you clarify that? And what does the Deen say about, because some people would, maybe crack a joke, a practical joke, or maybe they're angry on to take another completely different circumstance. What provide some explanation on that and clarify that.
It's
that
very, very important. And let's begin with again a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This hadith is in Tirmidhi. It's a Hasan hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, ثلاث جدهن جد وحزلهن جد. No, where the Prophet ﷺ carried on and said, النكاح والطلاق والرجعة. What does this mean? The Prophet ﷺ said that three things, whether you're serious regarding them or jesting or joking regarding them, they are considered serious. What are they? The Prophet ﷺ said, an-nikah, marriage, al-talaq, divorce, and a-raj'a, which is taking a wife back. Okay. So with these three things, regardless of one's intention at the time, lots of things in Islam, intention impacts. Okay. As for this the Prophet ﷺ made an exception in this hadith. Now, that whether one is serious or joking, they're considered to be serious, meaning they're considered valid. And this is what the fuqaha said, the scholars of Islamic jurisprudence. They said even if a man jokingly divorces his wife, it happens. Okay, there's many wisdoms in anything the Prophet ﷺ says. One of them is to teach us that this is not a word, not a light word, not a word that should be used in joke, in jest or in mockery or anything like that. You see, and in Islam, as listeners may be aware, divorce is with the male. Okay, the male, he's the one who pronounces divorce. If the female pronounces divorce, except in certain circumstances, this is the norm, the general rule, is that if she pronounces divorce, it doesn't take place. Whereas if the male pronounces divorce, it takes place, regardless of whether he's serious or joking, mocking or not.
Right.
It takes place, and this is something that people need to be well aware of. Okay, this contradicts a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, and people sometimes call me and they'll ask me regarding these matters. I'll say it's taken place. They said we did.
Well, people have
I've joked.
Really, and they've called you for practical advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've said,
And you've had to tell them that.
Yeah, absolutely. I told them that this is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They said we didn't know. And astaghfirullah, on the worst of occasions, there was one or two occasions, somebody had said to me that, why is Islam so strict? And this is the problem with human being generally. We'll never take responsibility. We'll never rarely will place blame on him or herself, but rather we'll try to push it out. You see, I didn't know, it's not my fault, I didn't know, or why is the deen so strict? Which, alhamdulillah, I rarely hear this comment from Muslims, but every now and then, unfortunately, I do. Okay, but the point is, as a Muslim, what is the meaning of being a Muslim? Meaning of being a Muslim is submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And part of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is submitting to the law, the sacred law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us through His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that before you engage in anything, learn it, study it. Before getting married, a person should study the laws pertaining to marriage. Okay, the fiqh of marriage, the jurisprudence of marriage, rights and responsibilities, the sunnah of how the Prophet ﷺ was with his blessed wives and vice versa. And all of these things, it's a must. They must be studied. Okay, before getting married, a person must study the hadith, Quranic ayat regarding divorce, and should study this from the perspective of Islamic jurisprudence, to get a detailed explanation of what the deeper meaning of these verses and these hadith are, and an overall view, an encompassing understanding of them. Somebody who fails to do this, and then inevitably is going to make mistakes, and then turns around and says, I didn't know. Yes, but you were obliged to know. That's precisely the point. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ Muslim. Seeking Islamic knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim. So many Muslims we have, alhamdulillah, they do pray, but they've never ever studied the details. The scholars, they weren't wasting their time writing, lengthy, detailed books on the prayer. Some less detailed, others more detailed. Okay, it wasn't just because they had nothing else to do. It's because they felt it's of incredible importance. The Prophet ﷺ spent a long period of time teaching the Sahaba. The Sahaba, taught the Tabi'een, and like this from generation to generation. Just to practice the deen on hearsay, or my uncle told me to pray like this, or my father taught me to pray like this. Okay, this deen is taken from the possessors of knowledge, the ulama. This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us to take deen from people who have real knowledge and understanding. Now, not just the closest relative that's available, or somebody who is in the masjid and has a beard. So yes, inevitably this person must necessarily know everything about Islam. You study it with suitably qualified individuals, study it in detail. So it's the same with prayer, same with fasting, same with zakat, same with everything. Okay, and with zakat's a real problem. People really go by hearsay with zakat. Zakat is detailed. For those who have actually studied zakat properly from a book of jurisprudence, they'll realize that they were not even close to getting it right prior to it. As I often say, with the fasting, even if you haven't studied it, you can come close to, or more or less do it right, possibly with wudu, okay, and some other aspects. With zakat, there's no possibility. Unless you study it, sit down and study it, you're not going to know. So, with marriage and divorce, it's absolutely the same. Anybody looking to get married should study these things, should study divorce.
But it's compulsory, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If somebody is going to get married, as take for example somebody who goes into business, then it's incumbent upon them to learn the rules of of trade and of business. Whereas if somebody isn't doing business, then it's not incumbent upon them, is it, to learn about that? So it isn't as burdensome as you have to know everything under the sun.
Not
But
at all.
as you say, marriage, everybody at some point will contemplate marriage, unless, as you mentioned in previous weeks, there are exceptions to those who are not. Upon whom marriage isn't incumbent or isn't required, but so if somebody is, then marriage is incumbent upon them, then it's compulsory upon them to learn the rules and regulations pertaining to marriage. But likewise, it applies to everything else as well: salah, wudu, fasting, zakat, hajj, umrah, charity, and everything else as well. But I think the human condition is that a lot of people, and I count myself amongst them, we don't know enough about even the basics.
And this is considered part of the basics.
Yeah.
You see, nobody said that it's obligatory to study detailed Arabic language or, detailed tafsir of Quran or what have you. But the fuqaha agreed that it's what you're involved in, you have to know about it. Should be involved in prayer. Everybody should pray, so you should study it in detail. Should be involved in fasting, should study it in detail. Should be involved in zakat, should study about it. When a person wants to go to Hajj, should study at that time. When a person intends on marrying, should study marriage and divorce, not marriage alone. But let me be very clear about this. Listening to a lecture like this does not constitute having studied about marriage and divorce. A lot of people will do that, get a CD or, something from the internet or on YouTube or what have you and listen to it. Yes, I know what I'm doing now. No, as I said, it should be studied properly, fully and well. Should be studied from a traditional book of Islamic jurisprudence. Sit down with somebody suitably qualified, read it, understand it well. And this is the point. And this is what should be done with all aspects. And if that's done, then one is fulfilling their obligation. And if they're fulfilling their obligation, they're not going to suddenly be surprised by, oh no, but I didn't know this, but I didn't know that. And some people, and I feel this is one of the problems, some people teach that the more you know, the more responsible you are. So don't study, because the more you study, the more obligations you'll have. This is absolutely rejected. This is absolutely not the case. And the case would actually be the opposite. Why the Prophet ﷺ made learning obligatory as well as practicing. Both were made obligatory. So the Prophet ﷺ didn't just make praying 5 times a day obligatory, made it obligatory to learn about the details of prayer. So somebody who doesn't pray and doesn't know how to pray has failed on both parts. You see, whereas somebody who does pray but might be making mistakes is, at least attempting to fulfill one without the other, but is, he may fail or she may fail. So this is the point. This doesn't listening to a lecture like this or many others. This doesn't constitute having studied, or sitting down with a brother or a sister who prays for half an hour or an hour or a couple of hours, and they tell you, this is how you basically pray your prayer. You walk out from that majlis, from that sitting, and you feel that, yes, that's it, I've done my obligation. No. These things, as I said earlier, that the ulama, they wrote books, entire works on this, you see, and they done it, and they wrote them for the masses. Some books are more detailed and they're written for ulama or serious students of Islamic studies or what have you. Other books are relatively brief and they're written for the average Muslim. What do I mean by the average Muslim? One who is not a scholar and one is not engaging full time in Islamic studies, a seeker of Islamic knowledge. It's written for others, and such books, they should be studied. They should be studied with qualified people. So this is the point. So divorce, whether in jest or in seriousness, it takes place. And another common error people make, and sometimes mentioned by people as this is the Islamic teaching, that if somebody is angry and divorces, then it's not a divorce. This is false. Okay, whether a person is angry,
what if somebody writes it down?
Yes, a written divorce with intention is also a divorce. Whether it's written down, if it's text, if it's emailed, in all of these cases, divorce is a very, very dangerous word, and it's a matter that people should be very careful with. You see, some of the ulama, they teach that look, the reason this was given, the divorce is put in the hands of the male, is because he's less emotional, more rational than the female. Obviously, this is not the case in every single situation, generally speaking. Okay, and he's not going to react suddenly and divorce. Okay, and this is, according to these ulama who explained it in this manner, this is the nature of a man, that a man should be calm, a man should be calculated, a man should take full responsibility for his actions, and should do what he's going to do with due consideration. Okay, and nowadays what do we find? Many men say, I got angry, I divorced her 3 times. It's ridiculous.
And that's another thing, actually brings us neatly onto the fact of that's a misunderstood thing as well. The 3 divorces, and aspects relating to that as well, which you asked me to remind you of before the programme started. So we're just heading towards a break, and inshallah what we'll do is we'll cover that when we come back after the break. So if you've got any questions about divorce or about anything relating to marriage or relating to this at all, please don't hesitate to email or text, and inshallah we could cover the responses to questions in next week's programme. So we'll be back after these short messages. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Just before the break, we were talking about. Sorry, Sheikh. Yeah, wa alaikum assalam. We were talking about the 3 divorces. And so, just clarify for us, dear Sheikh, what does the Deen say about the 3 divorces? Does one divorce apply? What's an irrevocable divorce? What's irrevocable and revocable? What does that mean? Because there's, as you know, as we were talking about before, people don't understand and misunderstand a lot of this, and this is one of the areas where there is a lot of misunderstanding as well.
Now let's speak about that, inshallah. So we'll start with part of a surah of Quran. This is in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 229. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. At-talaqu marratan fa imsakum bima'ruf أو تصريح بإحسان ولا يحل لكم أن تأخذوا مما آتيتموهن شيئا إلا أن يخافا ألا يقيما حدود الله. Okay. Now, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says divorce is twice. الطلاق مرتان. Divorce is twice. فإمساك بمعروف أو تصريح بإحسان. After which you may remain together in goodness or part from each other in goodness. وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَكُمْ أَن تَأْخُذُوا مِمَّا آتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ شَيْئًا. And it's not permitted for you to take anything of that which you have given to them. Okay, so this is part of the verse in Surah Baqarah. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention here? We have many other ayat of Quran. We have many hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarifying this issue further. But here in the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about divorces twice. Okay, after 2 divorces, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an option, which is imsak bil ma'ruf, which means that you stay together in goodness, or tasrih, or you separate in goodness, which is something we're going to come to later on, that even when a situation where there's divorce, there shouldn't be enmity there shouldn't be hatred, rather we walk away, inshallah, reflecting on our own mistakes and shortcomings and not blaming other people, inshallah ta'ala, but we'll come to that. So we have this verse of Quran that speaks about 2 divorces, after which you still have the option of remaining together. Okay. In hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this is further clarified, as well as in other verses of Quran, that in the Islamic teaching you have a maximum of 3 divorces. So
Right.
what happens if a husband and wife are married and they divorce, one single divorce, then if they want to, after this, if they want to reconcile, they may reconcile. If there's been 2 divorces, one they reconciled and then another one, and they want to reconcile again, they may do so. When it gets to 3, it's no longer permitted.
Right.
In Arabic they call it baynuna kubra, which in English you may translate it, sometimes they translate it as irrevocable. I usually translate it as a final divorce. Okay?
Right.
This is when there has been 3 divorces. Now once there has been 3 divorces, then that means it's final, you go your separate ways. Now, very importantly, how do 3 divorces take place? 3 divorces can take place in many, many different ways. 3 divorces can take place in a single sentence. If a man says to his wife that he's divorcing her thrice, it's one sentence.
Right.
Okay, he's divorcing her thrice, 3 times. Thrice or 3 times, either way.
Right.
As soon as he finishes that sentence, it's done. The
Whether
divorce
she
is-
hears it or not,
Whether she hears it or not, whether there's witnesses or not,
and whether she's aware of it or not, it
whether
happens.
she's aware of it or not.
It
Okay,
happens.
so now once he's done that, he's obliged to inform her. He has to tell her he's done this. The divorce has taken place. Now this is important. In all of Islamic law, the only contract that requires, for validity, requires witnesses is a marriage contract. All other contracts, it's good to have witnesses, it's encouraged to have witnesses, but it's never a condition. It's never a requisite for validity. So with talaq, with divorce, if one is inevitably going to do it, it's good to have witnesses, but even if there's no witnesses, it still take place. Even if the other partner is not there, the wife is not there, it takes place, even if nobody is there. This is according to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala in the Hanafi school. Even if nobody is there, it takes place. So it's very dangerous. This is if it's stated or uttered. If it's in one's mind or heart,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. It
Right.
requires
Okay.
speech.
Okay.
Okay. As for those individuals who are, impaired with regards to their ability to articulate or speak, they don't have speech, then through sign language or some other means, whatever is customary for them, they may divorce in that manner. So this is the first point, that divorce. 3 divorces can be in a single sentence. It can be in 3 different sentences. If he says to her, he's divorcing her, he's divorcing her, he's divorcing her.
Right.
Okay, this is also 3 divorces. There's 3. He said it once, said it again, said it a 3rd time. 3 divorces have taken place. It's final now. Okay. These 2 manners of divorcing one's wife 3 times are considered, again in the Hanafi school, this is considered a bid'i divorce. This is considered bid'ah. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited divorcing in such a manner, where a person divorces thrice in one go. Whether it's in one sentence or 3 sentences or what have you, it's not permitted. The person doing so will be sinful. Nevertheless, they will occur.
Right.
Now, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was faced with situations where a person had divorced in a manner that the Prophet didn't approve of, he still considered it a valid divorce,
Oh, it still stood.
but still stands. Divorce always still stands. Give another example. A man is not supposed to divorce his wife while she's on menstruation. It still stands. It's prohibited. He's sinful for doing so. It still stands. This is very, very important. Now, so this 2 possibilities. A 3rd one. Okay, he divorces her. Few days later, pronounces divorce again. Few days later, pronounces divorce again. Again, this is 3. It's not in one sitting. It's over a number of days. It's still 3. Okay. Another scenario. He divorced her, and then they reconciled,
Right.
and they remained together as husband and wife. Then he divorced her 5 years later. Then they reconciled. There's 2 divorces now.
Oh, I see.
Now, this could be over a period of a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. Okay, there's divorced her twice now. As soon as he divorces her the 3rd time, there's no more reconciliation.
Right.
That's it. If he does it the third time, it's over. Now, and again, what are these two the couple supposed to do? Well, if they've divorced 3 times, they're supposed to go their separate ways.
Right.
Okay, and many people have in their mind, this is a misunderstanding. Okay, they have in their mind that the Islamic teaching is, if any man divorces his wife 3 times, then they should do the following: they should have her marry another person,
Right.
consummate that marriage, get divorced in order to return to her first husband. Okay, this is a misunderstanding. Why? Because Islam doesn't teach that. It doesn't say that, right, what you should do if you've had 3 divorces, go and marry somebody else, okay, consummate your marriage, get a divorce, and no, it doesn't. It says go your separate ways. If incidentally it just so happens that you have now, for the female, you have now married somebody else, you have consummated that marriage, okay, it didn't work out, you've been through your iddah period, the post-marital waiting period, you can now return to the first. You see, this is incidental. You see?
It allows for that.
It allows for that.
You can't do it by design.
No. You know, to plan this or what have you, this is not permitted. And even the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in hadith that the la'an of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people who do this in a planned manner.
Right.
It's not permitted to do it in a planned manner. No, if it happens incidentally, fine, they can go back. And they go back, they have another 3 divorces. But the point is, again, this is a misconception people have, especially in my experience, people from the subcontinent. They think that for a divorce to be a divorce, you have to do it 3 times. Absolutely not.
No.
Quite the opposite. To divorce 3 times in one go is incredibly sinful. They called it bid'ah. The Hanafi ulama, they said this is divorce bid'i. This is a bid'ah divorce. It still takes place, and all 3 still take place. Okay, it should not be done in that manner. Divorce, if it's once, it occurs. Now, so this is very, very important, and if people need to stop doing this. I get regular phone calls when somebody says, I divorced my wife 3 times, what should I do now? I said, why did you divorce her 3 times? Who on earth told you to divorce her 3 times? Okay, and again, come back to the same point, study your deen. If you're married, learn about marriage, learn about divorce. See, don't go by hearsay. Religion is too important to go by hearsay. One's akhirah is too important. Or Google now.
Which is common now, isn't it? People
absolutely.
type in divorce, Islam, wife, whatever, in the search string, and then...
I heard this, or I found this, or what have you, and you sit down and study. Study books of Islamic jurisprudence which have been taught for hundreds and hundreds of years, have been accepted as authorities for hundreds and hundreds of years. And you study such books, and study with people who have studied with scholars, who have studied with ulama, with the chain going back all the way to the era of the Prophet ﷺ. Study traditionally. Now, rather than just go by hearsay. But somebody told me that unless you do it 3 times, it doesn't work. Well, you're not following that somebody's religion. You're following the religion of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, take it from the Quran, take it from the Hadith, take it from those authoritative scholars that were writing works based on Quran and Hadith. This is the point. Now, so this is with regards to 3 divorces. Never ever should a person divorce his wife 3 times in one go. The maximum the Prophet ﷺ permitted, if a person does want to pronounce 3 divorces, there's never a need, I should emphasize this fact, there is never a need to divorce one's wife 3 times. There's no circumstance that I can think of where there's going to be a need to divorce 3 times. And never did the Prophet ﷺ encourage it. Okay, but what the Prophet ﷺ permitted was the following. If he divorces her, and he really, for one reason or another, wants a total of 3 divorces, he divorces her, she enters to her post-marital waiting period, which in Arabic is called iddah, which we may speak about later on, if not next week, inshallah. Now, the post-marital waiting period is usually 3 menstrual cycles. So if he must divorce her thrice for whatever reason he has, then he may divorce her, wait for 1 cycle, then divorce her in the next period of purity after menses, then divorce her again in the next one. This is permitted.
Right.
It's not considered bid'ah. It's not recommended. I should explain this.
okay.
It is not considered recommended. What's recommended, if a person must, then one pronouncement of divorce and that's it.
Right.
No.
Mm.
As for revocable, Bismillah.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah, revocable. Yeah.
As for revocable and irrevocable divorces, now, this we have three phrases, if you like, or three wordings, terminology with regards to divorce. You have revocable, you have irrevocable, and you have final. Okay, in Arabic, what are they called?
Oh, okay.
Revocable is raj'i, irrevocable is ba'in, and final is baynuna kubra. We have these three. What is final divorce? I've explained it already.
That's with the three.
Three. In whatever situation,
Yeah.
when they get to three, it's
Yeah.
called final.
Okay.
Whether it's three in one sentence, three sentences, three over a number of days, three over a number of years.
Yeah.
You see, whenever a person divorces his wife thrice, this is called final. So that's a final
okay.
one, inshallah. As for revocable and irrevocable, okay, I feel the translation, although often it's translated as this, it's fine, it's okay as a translation. I feel
Okay.
it's a touch misleading though.
Okay.
Why do they call it irrevocable? Means that if there's an irrevocable divorce, then he can't just simply say to her, I take you back. Okay.
Okay.
If he wants to stay with her, he requires a new nikah.
Right.
Okay, that's what's meant by irrevocable. Doesn't mean that there's no possibility of these people reconciling. Unless you get to final divorce, there's possibility of reconciling. Okay, and then you have the revocable one, which is called raj'i, which is where he says to her, where he's divorced her, he can simply say, I take you back, and she's his wife again, even without a new nikah.
Okay.
Let me give some examples to clarify this. I understand it's a little bit detailed or complicated. So, normally, when a person simply says the word divorce, speaks the word
Yeah.
divorce, and does that with his wife, then this is considered a revocable divorce. So if he says to her, I divorce you, then what happens? This is considered a revocable divorce. So if this is the only time he's ever done it, this is one revocable divorce. Now, if they decide that actually that's a mistake, they want to remain together, he simply says to her, I take you back.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's why it's called revocable. You can simply say, I take you back.
Yeah.
Okay. What's happened now? They are now husband and wife again. One divorce has occurred.
Okay.
Okay. That divorce is not eliminated, not wiped out. It's occurred. Okay. But by simply saying this, they are husband and wife again. An irrevocable divorce, if he says, for example, I divorce you with an irrevocable divorce,
Yeah.
or if he gives her a written divorce, that's also considered irrevocable.
Right.
There are many, many, many examples, and this should be studied, as I said, in detailed books of Islamic jurisprudence. There are many examples, but, for example, when he says to her, I divorce you irrevocably, or he writes down divorce and gives it to her, or sends it to her, what have you, again, divorce will take place. In this case, it will be considered an irrevocable divorce. Okay. Again, this is one, and this has happened before.
Okay.
This is one.
Yeah.
So, but in this case, if they decide, well, actually, that was a mistake, let's reconcile, they can reconcile, but they require a new nikah.
Right. Okay.
They require a new marriage contract, which means they need two witnesses, they need correct offer and acceptance, the woman gets a new dowry, all of that applies.
Right.
Now,
I see.
but again, we should be clear about the fact that these kind of rulings are not understood very well in detail over the radio. There are lots of details to this, and people should study them in detail.
Yeah.
And one detail, just to quickly mention,
Yeah.
the revocable divorce is only revocable during the iddah period.
I see. Once
can-
that passes.
Once that passes, it becomes irrevocable.
Ah,
Still one
okay.
divorce, but
Yeah.
irrevocable.
Right.
These details,
Which means then a nikah is required.
then a nikah is required. They
Right,
can still
okay.
reconcile, but nikah is required. But these kind of details need to be studied and fleshed out in a class of Islamic jurisprudence. But the basics we have mentioned, and
Yeah.
very important, and once again, just to emphasize 2 points.
Yeah.
One is that whether it's in anger or it's in jest, it takes place.
Yeah.
And two is 3 divorces are not required, and nor should they be given.
Yeah.
If a person must divorce, 1. And that's it. And even that shouldn't be taken lightly.
No.
The Quran spoke, gave lots of detail with regards to how to try to reconcile it when people have differences or what have you. And the Prophet ﷺ's example himself, saying Zayd kept coming to him, the Prophet ﷺ kept telling him to work on his marriage and such things. And it shouldn't be taken lightly. A person shouldn't rush it. But when the decision has finally been made that they're going to divorce, it should be one single pronouncement of divorce.
Absolutely. And I think another important aspect is that when these things happen, say for instance, let's take the example of a husband and wife, they've been given a divorce, and that's it, they've kind of reached, or at least one person's reached a conclusion that they don't want to be married anymore. There's the inevitable issue of enmity and bitterness and all the family politics, as if there wasn't enough already in these circumstances anyway. But we know what happens, but what should happen? Because there's always there's always that aspect of it that will always kind of, depending on how it's happened. I think on very rare occasions it's done mutually. I don't think I've ever really, I've heard on one I think of one occasion where it was kind of done in a mutual manner, where both parties kind of accepted the matter of divorce, and that that's what they both wanted. But what does the Deen say about how one should be, what one should do in those circumstances?
Start by returning to what the Quran said in Surah Baqarah 229. فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَصْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. Either after divorce has occurred, if reconcile and live with each other in goodness, or part with each other again in a goodly manner, in an amicable manner. This is the point. And again, if we look at the example of Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when eventually the divorce took place, we never ever have any hadith or found any narration whatsoever when Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu speaks ill of Zainab at all. Nothing
after
at all. After they divorced, nothing at all. And vice versa. Zainab radiallahu ta'ala anha, her position, she was elevated after the divorce. She married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her religiously, she was blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Socially, obviously, her status increased massively. She was now the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And despite this great elevation, even socially or what have you, in people's eyes, never ever and he said anything negative about Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala. Did not find it, not from the individuals, not from the families, not from anybody. They just simply recognized that it's not going to work. Inshallah, they've given it their best shot, they've tried their best, it's not going to work, so let's follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, a single divorce, and to walk away amicably. And this is the point. Not for the two to, as soon as they walk away from this marriage, as soon as they turn around, they turn to their friends or their families, and he was this and he was that, and I never told anybody before, but I'm going to let out all of these secrets that I've been holding, and he was the worst human being ever to have lived, or what have you. This is the point. This is in complete contradiction. As Muslims, we should follow the Quran, and the Quran was very, very clear. فَتَصْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. Part with each other in ihsan. Ihsan has many, many meanings. It means in a goodly manner. It can be translated in a goodly manner. Ihsan can always also be understood to mean to strive for perfection. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about ihsan in that manner. So the point is that if this happens, they should walk away in an amicable manner, no hatred, not backbiting each other, not not revealing each other's secrets. We should remember there's a prohibition on revealing people's secrets. You see, to private matters, they remain private. It's not that you're no longer husband and wife, say what you like about the other person. No. Okay, just walk away. As is mentioned, one of the Salihin, one of the early Muslims, after he divorced a particular woman, his friends around him doesn't seem like, or the people around him, they asked him, yeah, so what was she like, and what happened, and all of these details. He turned up to them and he said, this is a Muslim woman. Okay, she's no longer my wife, she's still a Muslim woman. She deserves honor, she deserves respect. I'm not going to say anything negative about her whatsoever. And this is a point, this is the response that we should have. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another part of the Quran spoke about giving them mata'. What is mata'? The ulama, this surah is mentioned in Surah Baqarah 241. وَلِلْمُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. Okay, subhanallah, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it. And for the divorced women, there is mata'. Mata' they interpret it as some gift, some monetary gift. Or material gift, بالمعروف, in goodness, حقا على المتقين. What does it mean, حقا على المتقين? This is an obligation upon pious people. Sorry, this is a right, okay, due or a responsibility upon pious people. Subhanallah, it's as if the Quran recognized that this is something that only truly pious people are going to do. Somebody who doesn't really have piety is not going to do this. And how did they interpret this? They said that this is some garments that should be given, and he should give the female like a coat and a dress and a scarf and these kind of things, and one full outfit is what should be given. So the Quran also encouraged this as part of that process of walking away in an amicable manner.
Really? So in actual fact, what we do is, I think it's the opposite. They try to take as much as possible from one another. And instead of, and what you're saying is that actually to give something.
To give something. Husband should give the divorced wife any garment, any full dress, as I said, like a jubba or like a dress or something like this, and then a coat and then a hijab. They said that there should be, a woman in that culture normally will wear out, the amount of clothing she'll wear out, a complete outfit. That's what should be given.
That's amazing, because that's not something that's actually understood at all,
or practiced,
or practiced, or by that token, even practiced.
They don't share gifts; they share insults.
Absolutely. No, you know what? I think it's definitely been another session where it's been, you've opened things up that I think many listeners and myself had no idea about whatsoever, especially that last fact. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time together, dear listener and Sheikh. So may Allah give us all the tawfiq and the ability to practice upon what we have heard, and to make it incumbent upon ourselves to learn about not just these matters, but all the other basic matters as well, because knowledge is a fard, and Allah give us the tawfiq to learn more about our faith and to practice it as shown by the Quran and Sunnah. Jazakallah khairum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.